You've seen some of the FPV drone racing videos on YouTube, you want to get into the hobby, but you're thinking, gee, I don't have the skills, you know, how hard is that? I'm not sure if I can do that. Fear not, because this little bad boy right here is one of the best training tools in the biz. G'day, Stu here from UAVfutures, and today, well, I've got something pretty exciting that I think is going to be really good for our hobby. It's going to get a lot of people flying and into FPV drone racing. So what I have here, this is Eachine's Q90, and it's very similar to the little like mini pepper or drone bell pepper. I'll leave a link up here to go watch that, but what this is, in this little kit, you get everything to actually get started with some FPV drone action. And what we've got, you've got the drone, it's a 2S micro drone as well. You've got your radio, and you've also got your FPV goggles. So this entire kit, you can actually have a real FPV experience and have some fun and find out, is this hobby going to be right for you? And even better, you know, this thing, it's rocking Betaflight, which is like the program that we use, and also you can even hook up this radio to your computer and practice on some of the sims for when you want to get into the real serious end of the stuff. So what we're going to do, we're going to stick it on the bench, break it down, go through all the components, show you how the goggles, the drone, the radio all sort of works. We'll fly it around, show you guys some DVR footage of what it's actually like, and then also I'll show you how to hook up the radio so you can practice it on the sim and get working on those drone skills. Alright, let's do it. Alrighty, now here's a little FPV drone right here, and you know, it's looking pretty much like a frog actually. I think that's its nickname, the frog, the Q90, and you can see it's got some brush motors on the outside. We're going to very quickly go through some of the components. It's got its brush motors on the outside. It's got some little tri-props right there. Brush motors, they're not the most powerful, but look, for this thing, it's going to be absolutely fine, but they do wear out eventually, so don't expect this drone to be lasting forever because they're a little bit less durable than some of our brushless motors. It is on a 2S, so it should have plenty of power when you're flying around indoors and stuff like that. We'll have to test it out. Outdoors, I'm not going to be too sure. I have put on these little bumpers, so they come, you can simply install them by taking the prop off, use this little tool, and they slide over the top of the motors. And that's going to be great for when you're flying around inside. You might be a little bit worried about bumping into the TV or hurting somebody. This thing, it's going to make it very, very safe because it's keeping those props away from hitting anything. Also, it's going to make it so it doesn't crash as much as well. Let's stick it on the scales, find out how much it weighs. So this little toy drone's coming in at about 47 grams, so very, very light. Shouldn't be doing any damage whatsoever. You can see it's not carbon fiber, it's all just plastic. I guess it's not, I wouldn't want to be dropping it on concrete or anything like that, but I do think it's going to be fine for the little purpose of, you know, just experiencing this, flying around the house. Now you can see we've got a little FPV camera at the front. It's not on an angle, so I don't expect this thing to be going crazy fast or anything like that. I would like it if it had a little bit of up tilt. And then in the middle, this is actually pretty cool. We've got a little Betaflight controller, so you can hook it up to Betaflight. And also on the top, you've got your little VTX. It's an 8-channel VTX, and you can actually change that. You can change what channel you're on by pressing one of the buttons on just here. So on the radio, you can change your video channel. And that's fantastic because that actually hooks up to our FPV goggles. Now the goggles I've got here, these are the Eachine VR006 as an overall look. Usually, I'm going to say, they're not very good goggles whatsoever, but goggles can be very, very expensive, and for the price that you get in this kit, this thing is absolutely amazing. So look, don't expect the best of the best or anything like that, but I really love these goggles. Like, I think they do their job fantastic. The screen is fine for what you get. Look, it is pretty small, but still, this thing is going to be more than enough for flying around. Now, it doesn't have too many bells and whistles. It's got one little audio in. You get this little antenna with it, this little dipole antenna, so you just simply screw that on right there. If you need to charge it, one thing I do like, it's got an internal battery, and you just plug it in by this USB cable, which you get. So you plug the USB cable in the side, charge it away, you're ready to rock and roll. So obviously, you know, you don't have to fly with that, take that out. This thing will charge up, you're ready to rock and roll. Now, it doesn't have too many buttons, so on the side, it's nice and simple. It's got an auto scan feature, which is where you turn it off, on and off, and then you can also cycle through, I guess, if you want to just manually go up and down. Now you can see here, I'm scanning through the channel, so hopefully it stops on the bottom, so you can see it's cycling through all the bottom right there. There we go. So it's now locked in that channel. So when you've actually got this on, it is more than enough to actually see around when you're flying. Hello, there we go. Now the 006s, they don't have any DVR, there's no way to record your flights or anything like that, but look, I've flown around with these things in the past when I did that little Pepper review, and these things were great. For the money, look, you don't expect anything absolutely outstanding, but for the money, you definitely can't complain. For the money, these things are absolutely great. I'm a big fan of these goggles, and I think it's going to make the hobby very, very accessible. Now the final important bit before we fly it around, because that's where the fun is, we've got our little radio, and this thing actually is a little bit special. So this is the radio here, and this is probably where I think the biggest upgrade is in terms of this little little kit. I wasn't expecting the radio to be quite so good. Look, it still is a cheap radio, and it's definitely not going to be as good as your Tyrannus or some of those $100, $200 radios, anything like that. But you do get a heap of functions with this thing. And number one, you know, the gimbals were one thing I always complained about, but when you put these little sticks on here, they actually feel, if I can get this in, hang on one second. There we go. They actually, because the sticks are a little bit longer, it means you've got a bit more throw, so it doesn't feel quite like you're flying such a little toy. You actually have a bit more throw, so it's a little bit easier to control when you're in the air. You've got your on-off switch here. You've got some trims, which is nice. These buttons, they don't do anything. And on the bottom here, this is where there's some of the magic. So I like how it's clearly labeled. So you can see here you've got your 3 modes, and that's for your drone, whether you want sort of, I guess, self-leveling modes or totally acro manual mode. That's what I'm going to be flying with. Not all these drones come with that option, and I think that's really good, especially if you want to go learning in this hobby. Everybody should be learning on manual, because it's really how we fly all our race drones, and that's exactly how I'm looking at this. This is a perfect training tool for those people who want to get a little bit more serious about the hobby and just try it out, as well as being a ton of fun. Now over this side, you can see we've got our bind buttons, all that sort of stuff. Here is where you can change the channel, so you can actually, a bit like smart audio, change what VTX channel. So if you get a whole bunch of these flying together, all you've got to do is press the button, and then you can find a different channel that one of your friends isn't using. And then finally, probably my favorite part, which we're going to jump over and have a look at as well, what you do, you can actually connect this up to your computer using this part right here. You hold this button down, it connects to your computer, and then you can practice on an actual like liftoff simulator or something like that. Now that is a massive game changer as far as I'm concerned, because simulators are one of the best ways you can get good before you take out, fly around. You don't want to crash your expensive racing drone straight off the bat, and this thing, by being able to hook up to the computer, what a fantastic idea. So let's jump over, have a look at what that looks like now in 3, 2, 1. Alright, I'm going to show you how easy this is, and it kind of does it in a different way. So what we need to do, we're going to plug our drone in right here, because that needs to be actually have the battery in. And then we're also going to put in our little USB, so we'll plug that into the side. Just like that. And you can see the other end's obviously plugged into my computer. Then what we're going to do, we're going to turn my radio on. And there's this little button down here where it says channel or game. Hold that in. Alrighty, and now we should be ready to hook it up to our computer. So it's pretty strange, because the way it talks to it, the radio talks wirelessly to the drone, but the drone's got to be plugged in by the USB. So let's open up one of our sims. We've got Freerider right here. Alright, we're going to go over to calibrate controller, and we're going to center all the sticks. Okay, so there we go, it's our left stick, throttle, pitch, sorry not pitch, roll, and pitch. Alrighty, so now we're done. Let's click OK, and well, it looks like I loaded the car park level. That one's probably a bit hard actually. Let's go into the desert, and we're ready to fly around. Alrighty, so I've turned the volume down, and look, it definitely does work. It doesn't feel super smooth or anything like that, but if you just want to practice or anything like that, it's definitely not too bad. Very nice you can do this on such a cheap toy, because sims are one of the best ways that you can learn. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit of practice. Anyway, what we should do, let's jump over and actually fly this thing around and try some FPV action with our little drone. Alright, so let's cut to that in 3, 2, 1, boop, crash. Alrighty, so here we go on board, and look, this thing has a few different rates. This is in its expert rate, and you can see, look, it's got a little bit of pep, and we will be flying it around, and something funny does happen towards the end. We have a little bit almost of a flyaway thanks to the wind, but you can see flying it around. I didn't see the screen door had closed right there, so those guards do come in handy when you're bouncing off things and sort of bumping into walls. It does stop you crashing, because without them, look, it would have been all over. So you can see it's pretty maneuverable. Its flight characteristics are okay. It's not the most stable thing, but it's also not the worst either. And if you get the lines right, it's not too bad to fly. I think the only tricky part is when you're trying to do a hover. So you can see there's a bit of speed actually bumping off the wall. When you're trying to do a hover, it can be a little bit all over the place. So here's those bumpers coming into effect again, bouncing off, and I don't know, all I wanted to do was go forward, so that part was a little bit frustrating as well. Now the reception is something we should talk about, and I'm going to say in the goggles, I really like the goggles for what they do, but the reception here on the DVR is actually better than what I was getting, because this is recorded
it on my Omways, which are a much more expensive goggle, so the reception was a little bit better. But with the, like, I guess the really cheap pair, it was very, very difficult to see in there. And I'll show you apart in a moment what happens when I try to use the cheaper pair when I try to fly up over my house. Now here's what happens if it starts to sort of cut out. You can see the lines in the screen when you're getting a low battery as well. So once you get to a low battery, you're going to lose your video first of all. Now here we go. This is on medium mode, so you can see it's a little bit more docile. The yaw was a little bit twitchy, so you didn't have that fine control. I don't know if that's just because of the radio or something like that, but this thing, it's got like a bit of a dead band in the middle, so you might want to just move a little bit, and then it takes a while, and then you'll find yourself overcorrecting or something like that. So the response of the yaw I found was a little bit, I guess not perfect as well, but you can't really expect too much from such a cheap drone. Now, if you're wanting to get into the hobby and to actually try FPV, this is what it's all about. Like, you can still have a great time, and just because the flight characteristics aren't like a crazy 10 out of 10 $500 drone doesn't mean this thing isn't a heap of fun. I was still having a blast fly around. You still get to try some real FPV, see what it's like, still get to crash everywhere. You still get to actually experience what it's like to fly around and sort of, you know, become part of the hobby. So in that respect, I'm a massive fan of this whole kit. Everything it does do for the price, it does really, really well. Now I've got sort of two funny clips here. This was on the same morning when I was flying it around, and both of these things seemed to happen when I flew over the top of my house. So this one was pretty calm, and it looks okay, but with the goggles it was becoming very hard to see on the cheaper goggles, and I couldn't see if I was going to clip the wall, and of course where does it get stuck? On the roof, so that part was annoying as well. And then this one was on don't fly this thing in the wind. So this is on the day before. Look what happens. I take it up and it was very gusty up there. You can see it's just blowing it away. I've tried to turn it around and it is still disappearing. And if I know anything about flyaways, it's don't fight them for too long. If the drone is disappearing, just cut it, because if I had kept the throttle up, this thing would have been gone. But you can see the range there was okay as well. So we did get pretty good range.
Alrighty, so there it is. There's my review of this little bad boy, this little frog, the Eachine Q90, the full kit. I'll leave the link down below, and overall, I'm a big fan because, look, it's going to get people into the hobby. It's going to get them flying where they can experience some real FPV action, not just that junk on your phone, some real FPV action with a real radio, real pair of goggles, you know, and actually find out what it's all about. And it is so much fun. So for getting people into the hobby, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Now, as far as the drone goes, look, I'm probably going to give that like a 7 out of 10. It wasn't terrible, but remember, you're not going to be getting crazy performance because it is just that. It's a beginner's drone. You know, the reception was okay. It wasn't the best. We sort of get some of those dropouts and those sorts of things. But for the price, I don't think you can complain too much. The goggles, look, I've reviewed these before. I still think for the price, they do a fantastic job. And my favorite part about this radio, even though it was a little bit twitchy, and you can see I've done some mods trying to take the antenna out, all that sort of stuff. Overall, I love how you can hook this up to the sim, because that is this thing's strongest feature. If you want to get into the hobby, try it out, and you still want to progress further and you think you like it, this is going to give you the room to do that. You can practice on the simulator, so when you get your full-size FPV racing drone, you're going to have a little bit more experience, and hopefully things go a little bit better for you. Anyway, what do you think about the Eachine Q90? I know I've seen a lot of other videos where people like them as well. Drop them in the comments down below. Or what do you think about them? Subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying.
Alrighty, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel and check out these videos. And I'm also going to leave a little link here to my Patreon page, because I've got some fantastic Patreon supporters and I like to give back to them as well. So if you want to join the UAVfutures family, there's things like bonus Velcro straps, little bundles of FPV goodies and things like that that also get sent out. Anyway, happy flying.